Thousands of Honduran migrants clashed with Guatemalan police as they try to cross the country. Ugandan opposition leader Bobi Wine calls on supporters to challenge election results. And the death from Friday's earthquake on Indonesia's Sulawesi island jumps to 60. Hello and welcome to teleSUR. I'm Doris Polo in Quito, Ecuador, and this is from the south. Honduran migrants have clashed with Guatemalan police and military personnel in an attempt to bypass a blockade on the caravan's journey towards the United States. Authorities tried to stop the migrants in the town of Bado Hondo in the Chiquimula department to request the required documentation and coronavirus screening decreed by the country's president earlier this week. However, the group attempted to break the blockade and many escaped from the police's control. Guatemalan authorities estimated as many as 9,000 people had crossed into the country since Friday. Driven by deepening poverty, the migrants leave with little certainty about how far they will make it, as Guatemalan authorities had previously managed to break up caravans. Argentina has detected its first case of a British-identified coronavirus variant that appears to be more infectious. The infection was discovered in a man who arrived from Britain in late December without symptoms of the disease. Since first being reported to the World Health Organization in mid-December, the British-identified variant has been found in dozens of countries. This strain is believed to be more easily transmissible because of a mutation of the spike protein, the part of the virus which latches onto human cells. Meanwhile, 300,000 doses of the Sputnik V Russian COVID-19 vaccine arrived in the country as well, which will be administered to healthcare workers who already received the first dose of the vaccine. Colombia's capital, Bogota, has introduced a citywide lockdown for the weekend as coronavirus infections surge. The lockdown means that only essential services are open. Mobility is restricted except for healthcare workers, and the sale of alcohol is prohibited. Colombia was reporting around 8,000 new coronavirus infections per day at the end of November, but transmission appears to have risen to around 11,000 new cases per day in December as people traveled for the holidays. The government also announced that the closure of land and river crossings with its neighboring countries will be extended until March 1st, but added that this decision will not affect international flights. Now, the weekend lockdown in the capital comes as the health ministry reports that the intensive care unit occupancy across Bogota's hospitals is at 93.9%, meaning that the city's 1,939 units are nearly full.
We have 1,939 beds available in the intensive care units for the care of COVID-19 patients, which we have an occupancy of 93.9%. Without doubt, it is a high occupancy that we are experiencing at the moment. Social behavior is the most important thing. At City Hall, we're taking all the strict quarantine measures, curfews, everything that has been required to try to control and support the health system has been taken.
The health system in Brazil's Amazonian city of Manaus has collapsed due to the drastic surge in COVID-19 infections and deaths, combined with a lack of oxygen in the city's hospitals. Health Minister Eduardo Puzuello said the city is experiencing an oxygen supply crisis for patients with COVID-19. According to local media, this presents an unprecedented crisis following the spread of the virus, with overcrowded health centers and cemeteries. Authorities were forced to move hundreds of patients to other states and to impose a curfew. Brazil is facing a spike in COVID-19 cases, which has left more than 207,000 fatalities, the second highest death toll in the world. Staying in Brazil, the opposition has requested a political trial against President Jair Bolsonaro over his mismanagement of the COVID-19 crisis. The Rede parties, the Brazilian Socialist Party, the Workers' Party, the Communist Party of Brazil, and the Democratic Labour Party made the request in a joint press release. They said that in the coming days, they will formally demand the commencement of a political trial against Bolsonaro, whom they hold responsible not only for the lack of oxygen in the hospitals of Manaus and the collapse of the health system in the state of Amazonas in general, but for sabotaging the research and vaccination campaigns in the country and discouraging the adoption of health and educational measures to contain the epidemic. In other news, the president of Bolivia, Luis Arce, has inaugurated his first cabinet. Arce hopes to use the body to reignite economic growth and combat the COVID-19 epidemic. The first expanded cabinet will prioritize two central areas, namely the design of a new national budget and measures to begin the immunization of citizens against COVID-19. Arce also requested that his ministers and representatives continue to dismantle the neoliberal policies installed under the coup regime.
To reactivate the economy, we have the mission to restore people's confidence, to give them back health and education, to restore the works done for 11 years. And during the de facto government, the people have felt helpless without the state protection. Cultural and democratic revolution, all of us who are involved in this process of decolonization, because that is the name of our process of change, the decolonization process. All of us who are in the front line have to have a type of behavior. We have to encourage some type of behavior that is worthy of being followed.
You have more stories coming up. Don't go away.
Innovation, science, the technological breakthrough, and its influence in society.
Viajeros del saber, el futuro está aquí.
Atomen. Monday, only on teleSUR.
Hola, ¿qué tal? Sean todos muy bienvenidos a Vidas. Hay lugares donde el arte se unifica con el orgullo de los pueblos. Y esos lugares están llenos de colores, alegría, pasión, tradiciones, arraigo, valor y entrega.
Real Life. Fridays. Only on teleSUR.
Una travesía para descubrirnos. Buscamos conexiones perdidas.
No nos queda otra que luchar, porque no tenemos nada que perder.
Realmente es por todos.
Recorremos el mundo con reportajes teleSUR.
Saturdays. Only on teleSUR.
Welcome back. Uganda's main opposition party, the National Unity Platform, has rejected recent election results, claiming that the polls were rigged. The country's president, Yoweri Museveni, was declared winner of the presidential elections on Saturday.
We are here to inform the country that NUP rejects the announced results of the presidential elections. The results announced yesterday by the EC do not in any way relate to the presidential elections in which you participated as a party. We therefore reject them and ask NUP members and all Ugandans to reject them.
Now, opposition party leader, popularly known as Bobi Wine, has called on his supporters to remain calm and vowed to challenge the results of the elections, where he lost to the incumbent Yoweri Museveni. Wine has been placed under house arrest after claiming to have won the polls, and security forces say they are averting possible violence from the opposition. At least 48 people have died after tribal clashes escalated in Sudan's restive Darfur region. The attacks, which increased on Saturday, are reported to be ongoing, and almost 100 people have been left wounded. The fight between the Masalit tribe and the Arab nomads in Algeria reached melting point 2 weeks after the United Nations and African Union ended a 13-year peacekeeping mission in Darfur. The Tunisian Prime Minister Ikem Mechichi has announced a major cabinet reshuffle. The premier said the reshuffle, which affects 12 ministries, was aimed at improving government efficiency and credibility. Changes have been made to the ministries of Environment, Interior, Health, Justice, Industry, Energy and Agriculture. Since general elections in 2019, Tunisia has been generally considered to have transformed into a democracy after having suffered years of political instability.
I have decided today to carry out a cabinet shuffle while preserving the philosophy of independent government, supported by a political and parliamentary majority. The aim of this reshuffle is to achieve greater efficiency in the work of the government's policy and plans.
An armed group has captured a military base in northeast Nigeria in retaliation for an army operation that foiled an intended attack by Boko Haram. Hundreds of residents were forced to evacuate after the rebels captured a military base in Borno State. It follows overnight clashes with government troops. Now, the army said it discontinued fighting with the militants to allow locals to be evacuated safely, fearing further civilian casualties. The Islamic State has claimed responsibility for the second attack. Staying with news on the continent, a United Nations peacekeeper has been killed and 2 other soldiers wounded in a rebel ambush near the town of Gramari in the Central African Republic. According to a statement by the United Nations mission in the country, MINUSCA, the other 2 soldiers were wounded when a coalition of rebel groups carried out 2 ambushes on peacekeepers from Burundi and Bangladesh. The latest attack on UN peacekeepers comes as deadly violence continues after a disputed election last month in the Central African nation. In lighter news, the 2021 African Nations Championship Football Tournament has started in Cameroon. The tournament was postponed last year due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The Confederation of African Football said the event will go ahead as planned, but under strict COVID-19 measures to prevent the spread of the disease. The hosts, Cameroon, will play Zimbabwe in an inaugural match for Group A in the capital, Yaoundé.
I think the government has decided to keep the CAF, that it will have a distance in the stands. Then we will do the same in the fan zone to avoid the risk of contamination. In addition, we will make sure that everyone can wear the mask. This is the minimum we can demand. And you also know that everyone who will enter the stadium, we will take the temperature at the entrance.
The death from a powerful earthquake on Indonesia's Sulawesi island has jumped to 60. More heavy equipment reached the hardest hit city of Mamuju and the neighboring district of Majene on Sulawesi Island, where the 6.2 magnitude quake hit on Friday night. Military engineers have managed to reopen ruptured roads to clear access for relief goods. Power supply and phone communications also began to improve, but monsoon rains were challenging the search effort as hundreds of injured overwhelmed the only local hospital still operating in the aftermath of the quake.
For the search operation, we will conduct a search and rescue assessment first. After we get to a point where victims are suspected, we will unload heavy equipment to help.
Meanwhile, Mount Semeru on Java Island spewed hot ash 4.5 kilometers into the air as it erupted late on Saturday. People in nearby villages on Sunday morning cleaned their homes, lawns and crops, which were covered with ash. There were no reports of injuries or deaths. Indonesia is home to about 130 active volcanoes due to its position on the Ring of Fire, a belt of tectonic plate boundaries circling the Pacific Ocean where frequent seismic activity occurs. We're taking one last break, but stay with us.
Para mantenerme saludable, yo corro.
To keep myself healthy, I study.
Για να διατηρηθώ υγιής, τρέφομαι σωστά.
Para mantenerme saludable, yo bailo.
Para mantenerme saludable, yo purifico mi espíritu a través del cuerpo. ¿Y tú?
Guide your body. Tuesdays, only on teleSUR. Pakistani journalist Tariq Ali analyzes the international media influence driven by the empire, acts as an analysis of political, economic, and social life throughout Latin America through our stream and website in English. A critical space committed to truth to determine the conjuncture that moved the world today. The world today. Mondays on teleSUR.
Acompañamos a los pueblos que resisten en cada una de sus luchas.
Somos esa ventana que se abre para visibilizarlos entre fronteras.
Thursdays, only on teleSUR.
Welcome back. Gunmen in Afghanistan have killed 2 women judges who worked for the country's high court. The attack on the judges happened as they were driving to their office in a court vehicle. No one claimed responsibility for the attack, and Taliban spokesman Zabihullah Mujahid said the insurgent group wasn't responsible. It was the latest strike in the Afghan capital during peace talks between Taliban and Afghan government officials in Qatar, and it comes just 2 days after the Pentagon announced it had cut troop levels in Afghanistan to 2,500, the fewest in nearly 2 decades. The Australian government has announced the extension of COVID-19 lockdowns to the 7th of February as the country battles a surge in new infections. Now, this is the 3rd lockdown to be imposed after having declared the initial measures of curbing the pandemic in December.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are aware that this is a grim outlook on the next weeks for many entrepreneurs, parents, children, for all of us. But we gain nothing by opening up for 10 days and then having to lock down again with dramatic infection figures.
Well, French authorities have also implemented a nationwide curfew as the country's COVID-19 death toll has surpassed 70,000. The curfew will run between 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. for at least 15 days. Additionally, from Monday, anyone traveling to France from outside the European Union will have to show a negative coronavirus test result and self-isolate for a week upon arrival.
This evening, the curfew is in place from 6 p.m. 2,400 police officers are mobilized throughout Paris to ensure the proper implementation of these curfew measures and respect by population. And so, there are controls that are carried out on public roads but also on highways as well as in any other means of transport, stations, airports. These curfew measures already existed. It started 8 p.m. It was advanced by 2 hours. But the population is now used to these measures, so the tolerance is much lower, and if violations are noted, they will be recorded and fined.
Shifting gears now, scores of people have protested in the German capital Berlin against industrial agriculture. Climate activists, farmers and animal rights activists marched in a rally usually held annually to express concern over the damage to the environment caused by the heavy use of toxic chemicals and genetically modified seeds. Demonstrators denounced the government for failing to rein in industrial farming.
The government's agricultural policy is based on cheap mass production with far too many animals locked up in small stables. We call for an overhaul of agricultural policy in favor of rural agriculture.
India has begun one of the world's biggest coronavirus vaccination programs, hoping to end a pandemic that has killed 150,000 people in the country and torpedo the economy. Over the coming months, India aims to vaccinate around a quarter of the population, or 300 million people. They include healthcare workers, people aged over 50, and those at high risk.
The first vaccine will go to those who need it the most, those who most risk catching the disease. They will get the first jabs. The vaccine will be given in priority to healthcare personnel and those who need it the most, and that's 300 million people. I want to say to my compatriots that it's very important to take both doses of the corona vaccine. Never take the first one and forget the second. Don't let your guard down as soon as you get the first dose. Don't take out your mask. Don't forget social distance. Please do not let your guard down.
Now, on day one, around 300,000 people were due to be vaccinated with Covishield, developed by AstraZeneca and made by India's Serum Institute or the locally created Covaxin. The government's emergency approval of Covaxin, made by India's Bharat Biotech, has some doctors worried because phase 3 human trials are yet to be completed. Recipients on Saturday had to sign a consent form that stated that clinical efficacy is yet to be established.
Obviously, the one which is supported by data, if I would have gotten Covishield or Pfizer or for any other a vaccine which had phase 3 clinical trial data, obviously I would have wanted to go for that. But since that option has not been made available either in our country or in other countries as well, so that's not my call to make.
As far as my knowledge is concerned, I think they should have waited for phase 3 trial. That might be coming in 1 or 2 months. After that, on both vaccines could be started, but it's okay. The Bharat Institute is a well-known company, and already 22,500 volunteers have been enrolled in phase 3. So I hope the results will be good and they will be able to show good efficacy.
Moving on, a team of Nepali climbers have made the first winter ascent of Pakistan's K2 mountain, the world's second highest. The team of 10 Sherpas summited the 8,611-meter high mountain around 5:40 p.m. local time after leaving their high camp at 1 a.m. in temperatures as cold as -40 degrees. K2 is considered by far more difficult and dangerous than Mount Everest because of the technical climbing and frequent rockfall and avalanches. It was also the last of the world's 14 peaks over 8,000 meters awaiting a winter ascent. In the world of high-altitude climbing, dominated by Western climbers and expeditions who have relied on Sherpas to assist them, the ascent marks an extraordinary achievement for Nepali mountaineering. In a separate team, Spanish mountaineer Sergi Mingote has tragically lost his life while trying to make the historic winter summit of K2 as well. According to his team, Mingote was at an intermediate camp and fell about 500 meters on his way down to the base camp. Other climbers tried to help him, while a medical team from base camp was dispatched, but unfortunately they were not able to save him. 4 teams and about 60 climbers were on K2 this season, more in total than all the previous expeditions put together. On that note, we've come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. For telesur English, I am Doris Polo. Thank you for watching.